Hey guys, what's up? Ryan521 here, and today I'm bringing back another Star Wars video for you. And today, this is a video that I've promised many times before. This is my hopefully highly anticipated, I hope you guys are looking forward to this one, my ranking of all 7 Star Wars movies from worst to best. Now, this video I put a lot of consideration into it. There's some things that have been changed, since the new movie came out, and since after rewatching them for the first time in 5 years, to gear up for the new one. My previous last choice pick is now my second to last choice pick. They kind of switched around my bottom two. My previous number 2 choice is now my number 4 choice. There's been a lot of changes after rewatching these, for the first time in years, 5 years, as I said. I believe it was about 5 years. I was like, in like 5th grade when I saw these last, I think. So it's crazy how long I've gone without seeing my second favorite movie trilogy, or, movie saga, I guess you could say, of all time. And then another warning, I kind of just gave it away right there by, just by singling out the trilogy. Prequel lovers, or people that really like the prequels, may be a little angry by this video. I don't completely bash on the prequels, but I do, at least for 2 of them, I'm gonna give I'm gonna give some strong opinions on. So, let's get started right away. Okay, so, for number 7, only 2 of these movies I actually consider to be bad movies. The other 5 are great in my opinion. So for number 7, we have Attack of the Clones. Now, Attack of the Clones, a lot of people can, debate whether this or my number 6 choice is the worst of the saga. I think Attack of the Clones is the worst, and like I said, I would honestly consider this a bad movie. Like, seriously. Just the overuse of CGI, I think, is just a really big problem. When you look at scenes like Dexter's Diner and the Droid Factory in particular, like, okay, we get it, George Lucas, you're just gonna flash around your CGI, we get it, you have all this money, you can do all this stuff, it just ruins, it detracts from the movie. You got the really bad dialogue, I don't like sand, it's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere, just bad dialogue like that. I'm not even gonna blame Hayden Christensen, because I've heard that he's a pretty good actor in other movies, and even like in Revenge of the Sith, he looks pretty menacing as Anakin, and, I honestly just blame some of that on, George Lucas's poor writing, and I'm not going to completely put down George Lucas, but I'm just saying, it's like, he just didn't take his time, slow down, and just think, okay, what do the fans want? He didn't really do that with many of the, with the prequels that well. And then, just some of the things, like the music in this movie, I will say this, all of these movies have great music. Okay, it doesn't matter if you love the prequels, hate them, there's no denying, the music in all of them is great, because John Williams, it's John freaking Williams. This dude is a mastermind, but the music in this one in particular, the only one in the entire saga, I would say, is sort of subpar, it's not as great. The Anakin and Padme love theme is pretty good, but then you have scenes like the Coruscant, like the bounty hunter chase. If you listen to that soundtrack, I don't even know I'm gonna embarrass myself, but I'm gonna try and imitate it. It goes something like a ho 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 ho. Like, I don't really know what it is. I know it's just made a really weird sound, but it's like, it sounds like the same sound just repeating over and over. It sounds like a fat woman screaming, and they're just replaying that sound over and over again. Just go back and listen to like the chase over Coruscant soundtrack. It's really, and then I don't know, some of the sound effects in this movie don't make sense. One positive, I would say for sure, I'm trying to talk fast, because I'm trying to get this video, I want to make it short. But one positive I would definitely say about this movie is probably, there are some scenes that I've singled out, in this movie in particular, that are pretty good scenes. Probably the best scene in this movie, I would definitely say, is the fist fight, or, the fight between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan on Kamino. Just because, you don't really see that often, you get see, like, 2 guys, just squaring off, fists and all, just, like, punching each other, Whereas in Star Wars we mainly just see them, lightsaber fighting or blaster fighting. We don't really see a lot of hand-to-hand combat in these movies, and it was great seeing that. It was great seeing Jango Fett test out, or use all of his gadgets on Obi-Wan. Whether it's like the little string that he ties around his arms, or whether it's the spikes that come out of his thing to help him climb up, that come out of his arm to help him climb up the Kamino landing platform, or his rockets, or his jetpack, all that sort of stuff. It's really cool seeing use all of his weapons, just seeing what the Fett armor is really capable of doing, stuff that we didn't really see a ton of in the original trilogy, because Boba Fett wasn't involved in, actually he was only involved, I think, in one combat scene, and he died, like, halfway through it anyway. But, yeah, so I do have quite a bit of gripes, with Attack of the Clones. And I don't know, it's not a great movie. I think it's good. I think the lightsaber fight at the end of this movie is lazy and poorly done. It's too, like, I don't know, I just think it's like too, I hate how in the prequels, how their lightsaber fights, they do like a bunch of spins and flips and everything. I just think, it's not, I don't know. It's just kind of a boring movie, not a ton really happens, and I would just, put it at my number 7 choice. And like, even as I said, the CGI, the Dexter's Diner scene is stupid. That shouldn't even be in the freaking movie. Just a lot of, I don't know. And it managed to take, I will say this, out of all the prequels, whether you love them, like, once again, if you love them, you hate them, there's no denying that Ewan McGregor did at least give his all and was easily the best part of all these movies. So I'm sorry to, rant a little bit there, but there's my number 7 pick for Attack of the Clones. I'll take a sip of water for a sec here, because I'm doing a lot of talking. Okay, so for number 6, we're going to put The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And this movie only actually has two saving graces for me, actually. The entire movie would be at the bottom if it were not for it would be at number 7, because the entire movie is really boring. The pod race is kind of dumb, just the acting, just everything. But the one thing that puts this movie above Attack of the Clones for me is the last half hour of this movie, aka the final, battle, the final act of this movie. It's awesome. Like, seriously, this final battle is awesome. It doesn't make up for the fact that it's not a great movie, but it's still really cool. Okay, because, just let's go over the rest of the movie in just a short amount of time here. The whole, Tatooine stuff is pretty boring. The pod race is obviously just in the movie just to sell video games. That's never been more apparent in a Star Wars movie than it is with the pod race. The stuff on Naboo was boring. It introduced the worst movie character probably of all time, or at least one of the worst, Jar Jar Binks. I'm not even going to really touch on Jar Jar that much, because there's nothing that I can say about Jar Jar that somebody hasn't already ranted about on the internet. But, let's see here. I think that's actually, some of the acting is bad. Like, even if you watch the scene where R2 is fixing the ship, he's like, the one guy that's like, the shields are hit, or the power's back, that guy. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, but the dude is he has some really weird facial expressions. He's just not a very good actor. I think they could hire better actors for this movie, for the new Star Wars. I don't know, it's just, like I said, it's like the new Star Wars movies coming out. Let's get that guy to play that dude, some generic actor that, needs to take better acting classes. But, let's see, what else is there? Another thing I want to touch on for the prequels is the scene I just mentioned, like the scene with R2, like saving the ship and everything, and then Anakin building 3PO, and then Chewbacca helping Yoda, in episode 3. It's just like all these. The one thing that I think bothers me the most about all these prequels, the characters, all the original trilogy characters have to fit in somehow, and I just think that's stupid. Okay, like, I can understand, like, characters like Luke, Yoda, Obi-Wan, yeah, they should definitely be incorporated in the story of Anakin Skywalker. But characters like Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, no, leave them out of the movie. That's just stupid. In fact, 3PO in the prequels is honestly one of the most useless characters in movie history. Like, seriously, not trying to be mean. The scene, and that's another thing in Attack of the Clones I wanted to mention. 3PO, getting his head replaced on a battle droid. That's, a dumb, boring scene. That shouldn't have been in the movie at all. That was just stupid. But I don't like that with the prequels. They have to make every single character, intertwine with the original trilogy, which I just don't like. But anyway, back to The Phantom Menace. Like I said, I'll touch on the good things. The last half hour is absolutely amazing. It blows my mind, like we got, I wouldn't say blows my mind, considering, the only, like, the Anakin flying his ship into the, Anakin flying his ship, destroying the, the droid control center, that is kind of stupid. That shouldn't be really in the movie. The droids fighting the Gungans is pretty cool. It's kind of, played for laughs a little bit, so it's not really, it's not great, but it's not horrible either. it's still cool, to have in the movie. It's kind of cool. Jar Jar being in it is kind of annoying, but, having, like, just the droids, squaring down, huge droid army with some good music in the background is pretty neat. And then, you got, let's see, and then you got, Queen and the Queen Amidala, and, all of the Naboo guys, going after, trying to catch, Newt Gunray, and the other, Nemoidian guy, can't remember his name, So that was pretty cool. I mean, that wasn't executed the best, but I can understand why they need to put that in the movie, because it's kind of like the whole movie's been building up to this contract that they need to get, or this treaty they need to get Padme to sign. So they probably they need to put that in there, with showing Newt Gunray getting captured and whatnot. So that's I'm all cool with that being in the movie and all, that's fine. But the one thing that completely steals the show here is the Anakin, the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul duel. My God, this is just one of the greatest duels in Star Wars history, whether or not you like this movie or not. I personally don't like this movie that much, but this is easily this is such a great scene. And you've got Duel of the Fates, one of the greatest soundtracks playing in the background. And Qui-Gon's death, I wasn't, even as a kid, I was never really like, no, about it, because it's Qui-Gon. I mean, it's not really, it's cool because he's played by Liam Neeson, but just as a character, he's not that great. And speaking of which, actually, speaking of another actor that plays a character, speaking of, great actors that play characters I don't really care about, I just want to touch on Mace Windu for a second. Mace Windu is also a part of the prequels that kind of bothered me. Like, Samuel L. Jackson is in my second favorite movie of all time, Pulp Fiction, and he's probably my favorite part of my second favorite movie of all time, and they managed to make Samuel L. Jackson boring. So I just want to touch on that really quickly and just mention that, because, Mace Windu, very boring character. I don't know, just another problem I felt like I had to address. I'm kind of jumping all around here because I have so much to say about this, because I've given so much thought to this video, and what I'm going to say in it and whatnot, so. But yeah, so, back to what I was saying. The duel's awesome. Darth Maul he's just a really, really cool villain. I would say only behind Kylo Ren and Darth Vader. Darth Vader number 1, Kylo Ren number 2. I'd probably put, in terms of, like, Sith, I would, because Boba Fett would probably be ahead of Darth Maul, but, in terms of just Sith characters, I would definitely say Darth Maul is the second, or the third, coolest, Sith in all these movies. But yeah, because we didn't really get a whole lot of great villains in the prequels. Like Count Dooku, as much as I love Christopher Lee, he was honestly made for the role of Saruman in Lord of the Rings. I love those movies so much. He was made for that role, so Christopher Lee's a great actor, but just as Count Dooku, he wasn't great. And then we'll get to a few of the other villains, in a minute. But he really did a good job, even if he wasn't in the movie that much. So at number 5, we have Revenge of the Sith. This is actually a really great movie. It has, like I said, we're done with the bad ones now. Now we're moving on to what I would consider the good movies of the saga. So Revenge of the Sith, here, so give me a sec, I gotta drink some water. I'm doing a lot of talking. So Revenge of the Sith, we've got some really good, we got a really good, beginning scene, with like the battle over Coruscant. We've got this really long shot of, we're following the Jedi starships, throughout this, throughout the battle and everything. It really shows the devastating, clone wars that have been happening. The transformation of Anakin in this movie isn't great, it was like really sudden, but it was still really good, the scene where, Palpatine's fighting Mace Windu is actually pretty cool, even if I'm not a big fan of Windu as a character. But I still think this is, even though it's a prequel movie, it's still, it's still pretty good. Like, it's not quite, Star Wars, original trilogy standards, but it is really good. And the music in this movie, like, oh my God, March on the Jedi Temple and the Battle of the Heroes, Duel of the Heroes, whatever, the Mustafar soundtrack. Oh my God. 2 of the greatest soundtracks in all of the Star Wars movies. They're absolutely amazing. So, I gotta give him credit for that. Like I said, John Williams has been bringing it. He brought it with this movie. I don't really have a lot to say about Revenge of the Sith. Most of the things that, because I'm going through the movies I consider to be the bad ones, I have a lot more to say about rather than the movies I consider to be good ones. But with this movie, it's just, I don't know, I think it's, the death of Padme, nobody really cares about Padme that much. No offense, that wasn't really sad at all. I love that Jar Jar has no lines in this movie. So, there's that. But yeah, just trying to think. And sure, there was still some of the bad acting, Padme and Mustafar, Anakin, Padme, and Mustafar wasn't, some of the greatest dialogue of the trilogy. But it's still pretty emotional, to see that. Like I said, the duel on Mustafar is really good until the point where, where, like, there's some parts in the Mustafar duel that I thought, okay, that's unbelievable, you don't need to do that. Like, one in particular being when that giant, pillar thing or whatever it is floating in the lava is going down the waterfall, and then Anakin jumps up and land, he jumps, like, when the thing's, like, completely, like, succumbing, like just, just going right down the waterfall. Anakin jumps up and lands, like, directly on that, in the middle of that small little droid thing that's just barely bigger than him, that just can barely fit one person on it. That's too unbelievable. I don't like the part where they're, like, swinging on the ropes and slashing lightsabers. I just thought that was too, I don't know, it was just too, like, for the sake of, it's too obvious that it was just there for the sake of, stretching out the battle. I don't know, but regardless, it's still a really cool fight. Even though, like, Yoda shouldn't have to fight with a lightsaber because he's that powerful with the Force. Even though, I have that opinion, I still think that, the Yoda versus Palpatine duel is still pretty cool. I mean, I really like, it's really neat, Palpatine, like, does some weird faces, in the movie, like, I think there's one part where, when he forces that thing down at Yoda and he forces it back when they're in, like, the Senate, meeting discussion room or whatever, he's like, it looks like he's like biting his hand in one shot, and then the next shot he's like removing his hand from his mouth or something. It's really weird. Just watch next time you see it. It looks like he's like biting his hand. That's what I always thought when I was watching the movies as a kid. And that's one thing I will say. A lot of people say one of the good things about the prequels is the fact that they did Palpatine really well, but I honestly don't think they did him great, at least not in episode 3. I just think he's too eccentric and too weird. Like, I get that, he's so crazy, he's taking over the galaxy, because he's so crazy, so manipulative. But I just thought, he was a little too weird, too eccentric for me, kind of like a Jack Sparrow-ish type of villain, just too weird and crazy and eccentric and just bleh, So there's that. We already touched on, Mace Windu, being, even though, he's not a great character, still, the duel with him is pretty cool. And that's all I really have to say about Revenge of the Sith. So, that was still a great movie. So yeah, definitely. If I can see if you're a fan of this movie, I honestly don't blame you at all. I mean, if you're a fan of the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, that's great too. I don't mind that. I don't really care. I don't see how you could be more of a fan of the prequels than of the original trilogy, but I can, if you have a good argument to defend it, then I guess I can understand you if it's for nostalgia reasons or whatever. That's one of the only reasons I can get. That's one of the reasons I defended the prequels for so long, is because they were so a big part of my childhood, that I felt like, like I have to defend these movies, because they're such a big part of my childhood. I watched them all the time, Revenge of the Sith in particular. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit more biased to Revenge of the Sith than the other two. But, still not great movies, but, definitely at least watchable, I would say, or at least for some of the action sequences, they are watchable. So, we got Revenge of the Sith at number 5. Okay, so for number 4, we've got Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is a great movie. I'm just going to point out there. The one reason why it used to be my number 2, but now it's my number 4. And that main reason is it's kind of slow. I mean, compared to the other, and compared to the rest of the original trilogy, it's kind of slow. I mean, not a lot really happens. I mean, in the first hour of the movie, I mean, the whole Jabba segment, I didn't even realize till rewatching it, literally takes up until, I believe, an hour into the movie. Like, literally, not an hour, it was like 45 minutes. Yeah, I don't think, Luke, like, flies over to Dagobah, until, like, 45 minutes into the movie, It's a really cool scene, don't get me wrong, but I just think they stretched it out, especially, I mean, the Jabba's sail barge scene was perfectly fine. I love that segment, but the Jabba's, palace scenes, I think, could have been shortened up a little bit. And then, the Yoda meeting Luke, I thought was, that was a pretty good, touching farewell to Yoda's character. But the one thing that I don't like about this movie that I know a lot of people don't like are the Ewoks. I know they wanted to put them in there to be cute, because George Lucas wanted to, appeal to kids more, but they just, they shouldn't have been in the movie. I'm glad they weren't in The Force Awakens. That's one of the main, and then even it's one of the main problems I have with this movie, and then, when they're in the Ewok villages, it's like, okay, we can skip past this, the Ewok villages, don't really care about them, so let's get to the good stuff, let's get to the duel, the final, the whole duel between, that ends, the whole, trilogy, the final confrontation, final climax of this entire trilogy. And, and it was really great, too, like, like, when you think about it, the Vader, Luke, and Emperor scene in the throne room is, like, one of the most frightening scenes in all the movies, because the Emperor because Luke is in so much danger at this point. If he doesn't turn to the dark side, they're just gonna kill him, and it's crazy. It's my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, especially when Vader chooses between Luke, you know, saving Luke and killing the Emperor. That's like one of my favorite scenes in movie history. And then George Lucas had to ruin it by having Vader scream "No!" in that scene. You know, that's why I will never buy the Blu-rays of these movies. But, you know, still a great movie. I know I'm kind of, you know, talking a little bit of crap about this, but it's still a really great movie, I would say. And definitely worthy of being number 4 pick. You know, the music is really good too. The whole Falcon, you know, Lando and the Falcon, I love Lando. Lando is such an underrated character. Like, I was like, oh, he's cool, you know, when I first saw it, and after rewatching, I'm like, holy crap, Lando's awesome. You know, so I really like Lando now. You know, just like this really cool Han Solo-ish type of character, not, you know, as like cool as Han Solo, but definitely almost as, you know, cool. And you think he's great, you know, in the Falcon, you know, against, I would personally say the second Death Star defense, or the second Death Star attack, is probably one of the greatest space battles in any movie ever. So, you know, just really done really well. And yeah, I mean, that's not much I really have to say. The victory celebration scene at the end, victory celebration from the new version, not the dumb yub version, but the new version. You know, the only really special edition change I really like is the new song they used for, you know, the victory celebration. It's probably my favorite Star Wars soundtrack of all time. It's just so happy. It's so, you know, just, it really puts you in a happy mood. It always puts a smile on my face. I love that soundtrack. I love seeing all the characters in the Ewok village meeting up again. It's just really great, you know. And then you've got the touching scene where Luke's burying Vader's body, burning his body, and, you know, you've got the Force theme playing, you know, the Binary Sunset song. And then you got, you know, the death of Vader's character is a really well done scene too. You know, and then the scenes on, you know, the Battle of Endor isn't as cool of the battles I remember it, because it's mainly because of the Ewoks. Like, the Ewoks are a central part of it, which I don't really like, but I can deal with it, I guess. But yeah, still, when they're attacking them, blowing up the bunker, it's still really cool to see. So definitely Return of the Jedi is a great conclusion to the original trilogy, and it definitely is deserving of being my number 4 choice for this list. So number 3, this, honestly, number 3 and number 2 were so hard to choose between. It was literally, I thought about this for weeks before I did this video. But after finally thinking about it, my number 3 choice has got to be Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I wanted to put this in number 2 so bad, but there were so many reasons. There was I tried to say a couple, and then I tried to say a few, and that was like, there was a few reasons why I have to put my number 2 choice a little bit higher, and you guys will see. I'll explain that when we get to there. But The Force Awakens, if you want to hear my thoughts, I'm going to make this one short and sweet, because I did a review of The Force Awakens on, you know, my channel. You can check it out. If I can remember, I'll put the link in the description. But this is a great movie. Great, you know, it brought the Star Wars franchise back again. You know, Star Wars is officially back now, you know, and J.J. Abrams, he did it, he pulled it off, he did it amazingly. Easily the best movie of 2015, by far, in my opinion, personally. You know, and I didn't mention this, you know, in my review, but, like, just as much as I love the movie, I think one of the scenes that actually got me the most is the very beginning, you know? Like, just, you know, seeing the opening crawl, because I'm a little biased, guys. This is the very first time I've ever seen a Star Wars movie in theaters. So if you're, like, a fan of the original trilogy, I mean, like I am, you know, even more hardcore than me, and you think, you know, A New Hope is the greatest movie of all time, well, or the greatest movie of the franchise, I completely understand that, because you, much like my dad, you know, grew up and you saw this movie in theaters. My dad told me he saw A New Hope in the theaters 7 times. So, I mean, if you're like that and you saw that movie in theaters for the first, you know, when it first came out, and you're like, I have to put this on my number 1 because it's just such a great movie, I understand that completely. But, you know, if you're like me and this is the first time you've ever gotten to experience a Star Wars movie in theaters, then, you know, that makes it perfect. That makes complete sense too. You know, I understand completely why, like me, you're biased to this one, because this one is just, it was, you know, just seeing it in theaters for the first time, seeing, you know, the dun 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 dun, you know, seeing all that, you know, it puts, you know, just puts a smile. I honestly had like a, you know, an ear-to-ear grin the entire time I was watching. I looked like the Grinch, you know, when his heart grew 2 sizes too big. It was just, honestly, I was so happy seeing that for the first time in theaters. And spoiler alert, I mean, you know, seeing the death of Han was a bittersweet scene. I mean, I'm kind of, you know, it was happy because, you know, Han, you know, Harrison Ford had always wanted his character to get killed off, and he got killed off in a cool way. But at the same time, I mean, it's Han, we don't want him to die, you know. But the new cast, I think, definitely has this, guys. I think they're gonna bring Star Wars back, and then we've got the anthology movies that are gonna be coming out, and I think they're gonna be great, gonna be awesome, and I can't wait to see them. So I definitely think this was a great choice. Maybe I'll redo this list in 2020, you know, with the other 5 movies added, doing, you know, my top, you know, ranking all 12 movies, you know, because we got the 3 anthology films and the next 2, you know, in the new trilogy. So that'll be great to do. Can't wait to do that, because I still plan on doing YouTube videos 10 years from now, and, you know, for the rest of my life, as long as YouTube continues to be free, or even if you have to pay for it, if it's a small price. But yeah, The Force Awakens, off topic, I know. The Force Awakens is definitely a great addition, definitely deserving of being number 3 on this list, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's lists as well. So, for number 2, we have Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, or just, you know, Star Wars as it was known back in 1977 when it first came out. Oh, what a great movie. The Death Star trench scene alone, I never really paid much attention to it as a kid, but, you know, after rewatching it now and having more of an appreciation for film that I do, the Death Star trench scene is just one of the most remarkable, one of the most, like, oh my god, how did they shoot that in 1977? Scenes, you know, like I've ever seen in my life. It's tense. It's personally, in my opinion, the greatest, you know, space battle scene in all of Star Wars movies and probably all the movie history. It's the perfect conclusion of this movie. We've got, you know, all the characters on the Death Star. I thought was a great scene. You know, you've got, you know, the introduction of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Ben Kenobi, Alec Guinness Alec Guinness is probably the greatest actor in this movie, I would say. You know, the late Alec Guinness, he did a great job as Ben Kenobi, or, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, you know, it introduces us to the characters, to the Force, to the good, to the evil, the Rebel Alliance, the Empire. And it's so, I mean, it leaves you wanting more, which is why, I mean, George Lucas didn't even think this movie was going to be a hit when it came out. I mean, can you believe that? A New Hope is just one of the greatest, you know, like, movies ever made. Like, seriously, this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. Okay, and just keep in mind, it sounds like I'm talking about my number 1 right now. I'm only talking about my number 2. But this movie was, seriously, guys, this was great. And I realize this video is going on pretty long, it's 27 minutes now, so I'm going to actually just go right to my number 1 pick right now. That said pretty much everything I need to say about A New Hope. You know, the music's great, the throne room scene at the very end, the music in that is one of the greatest Star Wars soundtracks of all time, and it's just a great movie, guys. You know, Ben Kenobi's death is done pretty well. You know, you got saving the princess and everything. It's a great movie, so go watch it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you're probably not watching this video, but definitely my number 2 choice, and well deserving as well. Sorry. I'm getting thirsty. So, for my number 1 choice, you guys all know what it is. It's pretty much everybody's. So, number 1 is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. This is, oh my god, one of the greatest films in cinematic history. My 3rd favorite film of all time. Oh my god, this movie, guys. You've got the Carbonite scene, which is just absolutely great. You know, the I love you, I know. You have the I am your father scene. You have the duel on Bespin. You have, you know, Yoda lifting the TIE fighter out of the water. You have the Battle of Hoth. How have I not even touched on the Battle of Hoth yet? Probably the greatest battle in Star Wars history. I'm just going to say it right now. Oh my god, though. Just thinking about this movie, I just get chills, you know, because I just think, like, of all the cool scenes, and you've got Yoda trading, you know, Luke on Dagobah. You've got, you know, Yoda quotes that have, you know, I can guarantee you pretty much all of Yoda's quotes are on motivational posters somewhere in the world. It's like, I used to even have a poster, I think, in my room that's like, do or do not, there is no try, you know, and it's just like, you've got so many great things, you know, that have come out of this movie. Not, like, it's so rare, like, other than, like, you know, T2 or Spider-Man 2, other than, like, movies like that, there's very rarely will you have a movie series where, you know, the first movie is not only, you know, the second movie in the franchise is not only just as good, but it's better than the original. Okay, this movie was just, Oh, it's just, I just love thinking about this movie. The Empire Strikes Back will always go down as one of my favorite movies of all time, and I can definitely understand why it's if it was somebody's all-time favorite movie. It's just great. It's one of the great, like I said, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. It's in movie history. And, then you've got the Han Solo, and the rest of the crew on the Falcon while Luke's training. The asteroid field. This is no cave. Scenes like that. The Minoc. In the cave or in the space slug. But oh god, what else is there to say about Empire? As I said, it's got very prominent use of the Falcon in dangerous situations, which I love, because I love seeing the Falcon fly, because it's the greatest spaceship ever created for movies, in my opinion. If you're a Star Trek fan, I know you're going to say the Enterprise, which, not even being a Star Trek fan, I gotta say Enterprise is cool, but I don't think it's got anything on the Falcon. The Falcon is just the coolest looking ship ever. I love seeing it back in the Force Awakens, and God, what else is there to say? I love the line, the odds of navigating an asteroid field are like 750 million to 1 or whatever. He's like, never tell me the odds. I just love lines like that. You scruffy looking nerve herder. It just got so many classic lines on it. It's got Leia awkwardly kissing her unknown at the time brother. But yeah, I love this movie so much, guys. I want you to tell me down in the comments what your favorite Star Wars movie of all time is. This video is at 31 minutes almost. It's crazy. But definitely, yeah. I really hope you guys like this video, because I put a lot of time and a lot of thought into thinking about what I need to do for this list, what I should do, what is deserving of being on the list. And I really hope you agree with my choices. I hope, you're not too butthurt over, some of my critiques of the prequels if you're more of a prequel fan. But the things I have said, I think needed to be said, for the people that think that the prequels are better. I need you to understand why me, along with a lot of other people, don't think so. But yeah, that's all I really have to say, guys. Thank you for tuning into this 31.5 minute video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. May the Force be with you guys.